Hello, everyone, and welcome back to some more. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to some more Bible reading in Proverbs chapter 1. We're still going to continue with verse 10. And yeah, let's just pick up where we left off. Now, in the description, we're going to go into uh, Bible commentary by Joseph Parker, the Sermon Bible commentary, and plenty from the biblical illustrators. Now, when we last left off, we recapped with verse 10, where it says, "My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not." And we learned that we shouldn't give place to sin. We should not band with sinners, and not and we should do whatever it takes to rid sin, not just out of our thoughts or out of our spirit, but out of our lives too. Now it will come to haunt us, but with supplication and with the power of the Holy Spirit, and then we pray for protection and for strength and patience, long suffering. Then we will know how to react when these temptations come. Now we're not perfect, so we will stumble, but that's no excuse not to fight. You know, and yeah, we must do whatever it takes to combat sin. So pick up the sword, which is the Bible, and also the shield, which is the Bible. And yeah, if any of you have your Bibles or have your Bible Hub open, you can uh, come into the stream, or you could read along with me as I go into these commentaries. So what I'm going to do now is share the screen. Excuse me. Yeah, I know StreamYard. I know. I don't have two monitors. I'm broke. Okay. Okay, now I just got to see if it's actually being reflected. Okay. All right. So we've been to the exegeticals. There's a lot of the English expositions, but it ain't bad. It ain't bad. Okay. So we're going to start with the People's Bible by Joseph Parker and his take in verse 10. Now he actually has a extensive commentary for towards 19, but yeah, that's okay. So here we have the People's Bible by Joseph Parker commentary saying, okay, let's read this. Let's read this. If you have your Bibles or if you have your Bible apps, you could read along here, or you could just open your Bible to appreciate it more. "My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. If they say, Come with us, let us lay wait for blood. Let us, I'm sorry, let us lurk privily for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole as those that go down into the pit. We shall find all precious substance. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast in thy lot among us. Let us all have one purse. My son, walk not thou in the way with them. Refrain thy foot from their path. For their feet run to evil, and make haste to shed blood. Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird, and they lay wait for their own blood. They look privily for their own lives. So are the ways of everyone that is greedy of gain, which taketh away the life of the owners thereof." It says a lot, right? We also have our part to play. So don't think sin is just some passive aggressive thought that's just itching its way into you trying to do something messed up. Okay, here we go. Palestine, which is actually Jewish land taken over by Rome. So Palestine was at all times exposed to the crime of brigandage, not only because of the wild character of its formation, but because of its neighborhood to predatory tribes, possibly nomadics. No, probably nomadics, who lost no opportunity of availing themselves of the weakness of the government supposed to preside over the destinies of that country. Although that which is local and temporary has no longer any place. I'm gonna zoom this in for you for the benefit of you guys and also for me. So where were we? I should have done this last stream. Okay, so where were we? Temporary has no longer any place in these exhortations. The principle which inspires them is evermore operating in social life. Sinners enough are found in all ranks of society who seek to tempt ardent and inexperienced youth, baby Christians, those who are still taking the milk. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can't take the milk forever. You have to take the meat. A good example of people who've taken the meat is the likes of Dr. Kenny, Dr. Foltz, Smokey, Praise, I would say Praise, and Gavin, going out of his way to actually research to make Christianity appear more not just intellectual but spiritually sound. To do okay, so inexperienced youth to do that which promises immediate and substantial profit. Sinners who entice are the worst members of their species. Not only do they sin themselves, their delight is to corrupt and involve others. My son, if sinners entice thee, consent them not. Psalms 1:1. Blessed are those who walk not in the counsel of the ungodly. If sinners are so energetic, good men should be equally on the alert to repel their reproaches. Peter said to be sober minded and to bring the young into a state of spiritual security. Where the enemy is most active, the Christian should be most watchful. Now, the interesting thing about this is that my pastor, he actually quoted quoted from the Art of War by Sun Tzu. I can't remember it word for word, but he did say, if you um, if you know your enemy, you have already won the battle. If you defeat your enemy, but came in with no strategy, then you probably lost. I don't know. Either way, if we know how the devil operates, and Jesus also has a pretty good grasp on handling the devil and combating the wiles of the devil 101 in his word, right? So if we know the devil's tactics, then we know what to expect. We know how to combat this. That is why I said that if sin were to come back and haunt us, then we must be able to know what to do when it comes. How do we react? How do we deal with it? Right? Enticing sinners seek to excite enthusiasm in evil ways. There is a tone of grim cheerfulness and vivacity in their exhortations, which would seem to promise the immediate realization not only of great riches, but of great joy. Hmm. Sounds like doctrines of demons that sound really good, come off as beautiful, come off as easy, kind of like a get rich quick scheme. But anyway, as a matter of fact, men will do in crowds what they would shrink from doing in their individuality. Hence, there is arisen a great distinction between war and murder. That which would be murder in the case of a single slaughter becomes glory in the destruction of hundreds and in the subjection of nationalities. Beware of all programs, the end of which is supposed to be self aggrandizement. We shall find all precious substance, we shall fill our houses with spoil. As in the case of goodness, so in the case of evil, there is a distinct promise of reward. Nothing, therefore, is to be judged by the reward itself, but rather by the promises which culminate in the reward. Satan promises liberty to the man whom he enslaves. Never make the deal with the devil, folks. Probably at the moment of promising them freedom, he is the more firmly riveting their manacles and fetters. It is the part of wise men to dissuade the young from doing that which is evil. We ought to be this, brothers and sisters. Even those even those of us who are so young can inherit the will and wisdom of our elders. They cannot always begin with positive or constructive work, so much as to be done that is of the nature of caution or prevention. Okay, so the beautiful thing here right now here is that I'm told that we are that in this reading we are told that good and evil promises things. It will always promise a reward. Now, Satan, as Joseph Parker puts it here, Satan promises liberty, whom he enslaves. It's kind of an oxymoron, right? Sin promising you things to you things, but first it has to enslave you, promising you freedom. No, we can't allow this. I mean, like con men are pretty good at this. They promise you things, they reassure you on a psychological level, but in the end, they're just doing that to make their ends meet. And even if they do give it to you, then whatever was in their pejorative in the first place, then they weren't being honest and sincere intrinsically. Now, how do we fight con men? It is the part of wise men to dissuade the young from doing that which is evil. That is the idea of Proverbs 1:9. As a parent, as a teacher, as an elder, we ought to tell the young ones, or the ill-informed ones, or the unaware ones, that they should cling and hold on to God's wisdom, wear it like a necklace. They cannot always begin with positive or constructive work, so much as to be done that is of the nature of caution or prevention. The teacher in this case seeks to operate upon the sensibilities of the young by pointing out the cruelty of evildoers, telling you, why do you want to be associated with these people? Their feet make haste to shed blood, in their hearts they are men haters. They are philosophical. I'm sorry. In their hearts, they are men haters, they are murderers, they are blasphemers against the law of life and security. The teacher further makes a philosophical appeal to the young when he points out that bad men actually will wait for their own blood. They lurk privily for their own lives. I mean, yeah, if you think about it, like, it's this vicious cycle where complete utter douchebags just try to one up against each other. And you see this, perhaps not just in the movies, but also in real life. You have people trying to con against each other, you have politicians trying to smear each other, and you have gossipers and revilers trying to one up against each other. Now, yet they are blinded so that they cannot see how in reality they are suicides as well as murderers. The teacher, therefore, has strong ground on which to make an appeal to the reason and feeling of the young. He remembers that the wicked pursue a self defeating policy. Again, the teacher, therefore, has strong ground on which to make an appeal to the reason and feeling of the young. He remembers that the wicked pursue a self defeating policy. I have this. This is beautiful. Joseph Parker. Sink this in, people. Have this sink in. The teacher further makes a philosophical appeal to the young when he points out that bad men actually will wait for their own blood. They lurk privily for their own lives, yet they are blinded, so that they cannot see how in reality they are suicides as well as murderers. See? Getting into this lifestyle is suicide. Getting into this lifestyle will have you murder other people. Do you see this? Do you see this pattern, this vicious pattern over here? Trying to one up against each other, perhaps not physically, but also um, in character, in reputation, or in spirit, where if they will not murder your life and they will murder your character, which would cause you to murder, but getting into this lifestyle is also suicide. Do you see this? I mean, this can't be more explicit than it is already. This is what sin does to you. And this is what sinners want to drag you into. See this? Not only do you screw yourself up, you screw yourself before the presence of the Almighty Father. You literally dig your own grave here. And you know what? He made a pit and digged it, and is fallen into the ditch which he made. His mischief shall return upon his own head, and his violent dealing shall come down upon his own pate. This is basically saying this, okay, this is your funeral. You want to reject my word? Fine, it's your funeral. You see that? This can't be more explicit. He's already telling you that, hey, this is dangerous, but if you still want to continue this lifestyle, then hey, it's your funeral. He made a pit and digged it. Now, I'm not sure now I have no cultural context. I have no grasp in cultural context to back this up or what I think this is, but this is like digging your own grave. You dig your own grave, you put yourself in a coffin and bury yourself 6 feet below. You are literally doing this when you decide to take on this lifestyle. The Christian church should energetically point out to the young the nets which are spread for them in every direction all over the field of life. It should also point out the hollowness of all immoral enthusiasm. Okay, so yeah, yeah, sin is a trap. Sin is a trap. Point out the nets which are spread for them in every direction are all over the field of life. It should also point out the hollowness of all immoral enthusiasm. Immoral enthusiasm. Quick their feet run, their feet are quick to do evil. Immoral enthusiasm. Their feet are quick to do evil. See that? Come ye, I will fetch wine, and we will fill ourselves with strong drink, and tomorrow shall be as this day, and much more abundant. You see this, ladies and gentlemen? See this? You can't get more explicit than that. You literally allow yourself to walk into a trap. Don't let and that's the thing about us. That's the thing about us humans. I mean, of course, we don't want things that would hurt us. We want things that would benefit us. We rather go to things that feel good rather than feel bad. But Satan likes to use that and twist it to make his ends meet. Uh, okay. Now, what does the Sermon Bible have to say? Right? Proverbs 1:10, we know what this is. There are two chief sources of temptation, which Solomon indicates in these chapters, and which, when we have stripped off the figure, before I go further, my son, this is like an appeal to the younger generation. Yeah, life would be much more abundant if we're able to avoid this. Because sin just doesn't come off as a one-time thing, right? It's multiple. One sin, and then there will be multiple effects. Now, there are now, yeah, I mean, at least there will be some that are just a temporary effect, but don't wait for a significant one that would affect for a long period of time or worse your entire life. Sin is capable of making you feel regret too. And from the wisest man of his time to the younger generations who are also unaware, please heed my warning. Use my broken life as an example that if you dare follow in my footsteps, in my wicked footsteps, you will reap this consequence. Literally. Excuse me, I'm recording a video right here. Guru has actually just shared this video. Thank you, Guru. I appreciate that. But I gotta, yeah, that'll do. Okay. So let's go to Sermon Bible. I might allow open mic for a little bit so that you could give me your takes if you have something to contribute, then yeah, I'd be happy to send you the link through the chat and I'll let you in. But first, I just want to finish some readings. Okay. I will make room for open mic. All right, so Sermon Bible, Proverbs 110. There are two chief sources of temptation which Solomon indicates in these chapters, in which, when we have stripped off the figure or the accidental circumstances of age and time, are not less applicable to our days than to his. There's nothing new under the sun. You have people trying to do good, and you have people regretting their decisions. The first is sensuality, figured and summed up in the repeated picture of the strange woman which flattereth with her tongue, which forsaketh the guide of her youth and forgetteth the covenant of her God. This is basically verse 10 again, but in a sense where it's compared to a strange woman that whispers in your ear. The next one, the other, is that of evil companionship. Paul makes it explicit that bad company ruins good morals. You may see in chapter 2 the two distinguished very clear and put as the two things from which wisdom, discretion, understanding should preserve you. And then as we go back, or let's say, all of these commentaries would tell you that do not band with sinners. And I would repeat Psalm 1:1 again. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly. Now, my son, if sinners entice you, consent thou not. The particular sins to which Solomon imagines the young man as being enticed are not at the moment sins of sensuality, but sins of violence. I mean, yeah, well, in this case, uh, um, verses 11 to 14 explicitly defines raiders, pillagers, murderers, thieves, bandits. And much like sin, it robs you not just of the blessings that God could give to you, but also of your life. And coming from an old man who was once the wisest man of his time, suddenly falling into debauchery and witchcraft is now telling you, again, I've said this a while ago, Solomon is basically saying, dare not follow in my wicked footsteps, for it will rob you of my life, rob you of your youth as it did mine. He is invited to join, to throw in his lot with a band of brigands or highwaymen. The words describe the temptation to sin offered by companionship. If sinners entice thee, consent thou not. Now, earlier, I mean, if you guys, just in case you missed it, earlier in Joseph Parker's commentary, somewhere here it says, hang on. as in the case. So it's a case of a distinct promise of reward. No, not this one. Sinners enough are found in all ranks of society who would seek to tempt ardent and inexperienced youth to do which promises immediate and substantial profit. Sinners who entice are the worst members of their species. Not only do they this is the one. Not only do they sin themselves, their delight is to corrupt and involve others. This is how they validate themselves. And I ought to have this bolded. Tell you what, I'll add something here. Hang on. There you go. This warning can't be any more explicit and simple as it is. For, I mean, in the superficial sense, you would roll your eyes. But once you get into the bottom of this simple warning is actually more mercy and more time saving than the rest would be. I mean, of course, allowing you to engage with other things too. Okay, so let's continue. Where were we? A band of brigands or highwaymen. Okay, the words describe the temptation to sin offered by companionship. Sin of lawlessness, sin of daring, sin of cruelty, and sin of injustice. And there would be plenty more to name. There is the natural temptation to go with a multitude, to feel that we are in the stream. There are the subtle temptations which make us in the part of our better nature to adventure, to braving risk, to standing by companions. It may be a little matter at first, a youthful freak, but it will be defended presently by falsehood. Will they have the courage to draw back then? He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but the companion of fools shall be destroyed. You can't get more explicit than this. It can't get more explicit than that, folks. Rather. This is commentary by Wickham Wellington College, sermons, page 216. Look first at the. Yeah. So this is a different one. This is by S. Martin at Westminster Chapel Pulpit. Okay. Look first at the case supposed. It is a common case. Sinners do in tithes. See? It's like one of those people in the corner just offering you some ecstasy. Anyway, it is the nature of sin to make men tempters one of another. Yeah. If we go back, the teacher, this is by Joseph Parker. The teacher further makes a philosophical appeal to the young when he points out that bad men actually will wait for their own blood. They look privily for their own lives. Yet they are blinded so that they cannot see how in the reality they are suicides as well as murderers. And, fast forward, it is a self-defeating policy. Look at that. See this? Suicides as well as murderers. This lifestyle is redundant. You get into this lifestyle, it's suicide. You get into this lifestyle, you have to try to one up against the others. And you're actually also hastening their inevitability, whereas at the same time they also do this to you. If the enemy is in sight, so are you. This is really explicit, people. You can't get more explicit than that. I know I've said explicit. I know I've overused the word explicit. Anyway. Okay, so sinners do in tithes. It is the nature of sin to make men tempters one of another. Men do not like to sin alone. Remember, also Joseph Parker. They have to come in a band to be validated. So if I were to put it in logical terms, they would appeal to a ad populum, or an argument by culture, pure shifting sands. Sounds like a bunch of atheists. Well, not all. I mean, there are some who are not really screwed up in the head, but normally they would make up a community in order to actually uh, to validate themselves, becoming groups. So is in the sight of good. Good and evil promises rewards, but that depends on the contents of the groups. Do they offer life or do they offer chaos? Anyway, moving on. Sinfulness begets a spirit of mischief, and if a man injures himself, he desires to see somebody else injured. Huh. Basically, sin is telling you, if I go down, so will you. The devil also trying to lead people away from the gospel, or if the if people actually heard the gospel, then they would lead he would lead him to reject the words of God and his salvific grace. I mean, the devil already knows his end. He actually he actually adheres to the tenets of the Lord, except that he doesn't want that for others, because part of those tenets actually state his defeat. And Satan knows that God is powerful. So what does he do? If he goes down, so will the sinners. This commentary is useful against free grace. You have your part to play. We have our part to play. Number two, it is a serious case. Generally speaking, the tempters are stronger than the tempted. Yes, the tempters are stronger than the tempted. Temptation, when it is presented, is presented to a nature more or less susceptible. To be enticed is to be in danger of yielding to the inducement and falling into sin. This is a serious case, but number three is by no means a hopeless one. Consent thou not. This also tells me that the devil can be pathologically polite, pathologically nice, super kind, super compassionate. Because um, hang on, because there's a part of it that I read that actually further exhorts this point. Number two, notice the advice given. Without consent, temptation cannot take effect. And without consent, the temptation can do no real harm. Yes. Where is that? Hang on. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Well, there was one commentary that says that um, sin cannot, sin or sinners cannot do you no harm unless you join them, unless you affirm with them, unless you band with them. Consent thou not, for if you do consent, be sure your sin will find you out. Yeah, you can't play with the devil. You can't gamble with this one. Jeez. All right. Okay. Moving on. So this is by S. Martin, Westminster Chapel Pulpit, second series, number 17. This verse in brief compass and transparent terms reveals the foe and the fight. It is a father's voice. It speaketh unto us unto children, but the kindness and wisdom altogether paternal. It warns the youth of the danger that assails him, and suggests the method of defense. The danger is if sinners entice thee, they are enticers and enticements, the fowler and the snare. The enticers of youth may be divided into two great classes, the internal and the external. The sinners that entice from within are the man's own thoughts and desires. The sinners that entice from without are fellow men who, having gone astray, themselves are busy leading others after them. Among the enticements we may name the theater, the customs of society, encouraging the use of intoxicating drinks. Oh, so he's one of these people. The defense prescribed is consent thou not. It is a blunt, peremptory command. Your method of defense must be different from the adversary's mode of attack. His strength lies in making gradual approaches, yours in a resistance, sudden, resolute, total. The means of resisting, we do not speak here of the first and best means. The word of God and prayer are refinement of manners, profitable study, benevolent effort, improving company. There you go. There you go. This is by W. Arnott, Laws from Heaven, first series. And there are plenty more references. Okay. Now that we're done here, let's go to biblical illustrators. All right. My son, if sinners entice thee, consent then not. We're only going to be looking at verse 10 for our commentaries in biblical illustrators for verse 10 only. And there is a lot for verse 10. But I think we'll just go less than half of this because I also want to make room for other readings that I want to get into. Okay. So, this is by, I guess this is Rick Newton, I don't know. So, reasons for resisting the enticements of sinners. By sinners is meant all persons who are not true Christians. Remember that I exhorted in one of Smokey's streams the Cretians, professing to know God, but they denied him in their works. Free gracers, free grifters. You want to think about whether or not you're in the faith. Now, 3 reasons why we should not consent when sinners entice us. Good question. No, good. Good start. What does it say? Because when we begin to sin, it is hard to stop. Because it is dangerous. Because it is disgraceful. Yes, even if people don't catch you in the act and have them, or you give them a different look on you, what happens then? Well, of course, you may not have a different. If you're not caught in the act and you can only hide it for long, people will not have a different look at you. But remember, you believe in a holy God. So if you don't disgrace people at the flesh, that there is one person you can't hide from. We know who that is. Jesus Christ. God the Almighty Father, the all-seeing, all-knowing. And to make it worse, it's just not in the flesh. He also knows the mind. He sees what you do. God looketh not in the outward appearance, but God looketh at the heart. The demonstration of by the flesh is just the secondary. David, being a peeping Tom to Bathsheba, was a good example, and I actually talked about this in the previous stream. It's there. You can look it up if you want. Now, let's continue. It is so in the book. It is so in the looks it gives us. It is so in the company into which it brings us. 2 things we ought to do: get rid of the sins we have committed. Try to keep from sinning anymore, said a boy to his sister one day. I want the Spirit to look sin right in the face when it comes to me and say, "Begone." Yes, replied the sister, and one thing more you want. You want God's spectacles to see sin and know it when it comes. For it does not always show us its colors. Yes, sin can be subtle. Even the things that we might have done, that of which we don't know, is actual sin. So what do we do? Brother says, I want the Spirit to look sin right in the face when it comes to me and say, "Begone." So he yeah, it's kind of like he's wanting this unequivocal knowledge of what sin looks like. Good on you, boy. Yes, replied the sister. They both wanted. Yes, replied the sister. And one more thing, or one thing more you want. You want God's spectacles to see sin and know it when it comes, for it does not always show its colors. Yes, sin can be sneaky. and you only realize it when it's too late. Now, Smokey, if you're listening, I think you like this guy, so let's listen to what he has to say. This topic of sinful enticement. I'm gonna have a interjectory here. I'm just gonna say hello to some people. Hello, Mallory. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for stopping in. Uh, let's see, Guru lady. Thank you for sharing the link. I appreciate it. Just gonna have a quick break. Just gonna have a sip of my tea. I appreciate you guys chiming in. I cannot see what's going on the other end because I'm on my laptop. If I had two screens, then probably, but yeah, I don't need to. I don't need it already. I mean, if it works without a double monitor, then it's fine. Yeah. So I'm not gonna put in the StreamYard link yet for open mic, but if you want to contribute, you could go in the side chat first. I'll do my best to read them as soon as I can. Yeah. All right. Well, as it appears, no one else is viewing it now. So, Sinful Enticements by Matthew Henry. How industrious wicked people are to seduce others into the paths of the destroyer. Sinners love company in sin. The angels that fell were tempters almost as soon as they were sinners. Even, I would think, probably also those that banded with Satan in his rebellion. They do not threaten or argue. This was the point I was trying to make. They do not threaten or argue, but entice with flattery and fair speech. Yes, because, I mean, it's like the idea of whispering. You don't want to incite a defense mechanism or any resistance. You want to make sure that it just enters in smoothly. Because if you give them the idea, the enticer or the whisperer is only making it difficult for his or herself. So what does he do? He entices with flattery and fair speech. Well, I may have done many other things, but I never cursed. I'm a nice person. Yeah, whatever. Even the devil can be nice. Even the devil will choose not to use curse words on you. Excuse me. Be right back. Hey guys, I'm back. Sorry, mom was just giving me a taste of, you know, beef sandwich lunch for tomorrow. Anyway, so where was I? Um, oh yes, where was that? Oh here. Let's go back from the beginning. How industrious wicked people are to seduce others into the paths of the destroyer. Sinners love company and sin. The angels that fell were tempters almost as soon as they were sinners. They do not threaten or argue, but entice with flattery and fair speech. With a bait they draw to unwary young man to the hook. Do you see how the devil sees us? And it's also really insulting. This is an insult also. We are like fishes. We're like fish for hooks. Do you see that the devil also insults you and you allow him to do that? And here's one more thing. Entice also means to whisper. Because if you give them the idea that would agitate people and elicit resistance, then it's only going to make the whisperer. It's only making no, it's only making the whisperer hard for himself or herself. So what does he do? The whisperer will attempt to flatter and use fair speech. And this is also to tell you that even the devil can be kind, compassionate, make you feel good, doesn't use derogatives on you. So yeah, I'm also gonna point this out to the free gracers. You can say that you don't curse, you're nice people, you don't take it to people. Well, guess what? Please, please. Now, I'm not equivocating you as devils. Okay, I'm not making that equivocation. But if just conducting yourself as but if conducting yourself as just not being mean to people, not calling them out, not actually giving credit or criticism where it's due, whether or not it's sorry, whether or not it should be harsh or should be corrective in a more nice way. I mean, there's even times where we have to be corrected. I mean, even the Bible, it says you are to rebuke and reproach. Rebuke is harsh, strong correction, discipline. So if you think that just because you are doing this, that's, well, that's not a leg, but that is the only means of leverage you have. Fair speech. Well, I just validate people. I make them feel better. I don't call them bad names. I don't curse at them. Yeah, sure, you can have that. But guess what? But guess who else who could do this? And it's not just con men do this. Whisperers do this. People that try to get you in a get rich quick scheme do this. They make you feel good. They grift. They psychologically manipulate you. They make you feel good. They flatter. This goes all the way back when Satan tempted Eve to eat from the fruit. And you know what happened? Eve embraced that stimuli from from Satan in the form of a snake. Perhaps not in the form, but manifesting in it. Poor creature. Poor creature. Satan destroys everything. But if they think that by bringing others to partake with them in their guilt and to be bound, as it were, in the bond with them, they shall have the less to pay themselves, for they will have so much the more to answer for. Matthew Henry, ladies and gentlemen. Now, one by uh, D. Johnstone, the various ways by which sinners entice us to vice. I shall mention some of the various ways by which sinners entice us to vice. One, they were presented as a light and trivial matter, and at the worst as venial and pardonable. What is it? They will probably say, but a human weakness and infirmity to which all men are subject. Can it be criminal to follow the dictates of one's natural passions? You can be no worse than thousands who indulge in the same excesses. They will give soft names to the greatest abominations. You see this? They will give soft names to the greatest abominations in order to prevent alarm. Let that sink in, people. Why don't we go back to when brother and sister were talking to each other? Tried to keep more sinning anymore, said a boy to his sister one day. I want the spirit to look sin right in the face when it comes to me and say, begone. Yes, replied the sister, and one thing more you want God's spectacles to see sin and know it when it comes, for it does not always show us its colors. And Johnston repeats this. They will give soft names to the greatest abominations in order to prevent alarm. Enticement, flattery, fair speech is just one of the modes as to make this mean end. They do not threaten or argue, but entice with flattery and fair speech. With the bait, they draw the unwary young man to the hook. We're basically fishes here, people. And you can tell that Satan, in a way, insults you. And you're going to take it from a punk like him? You shouldn't. In this way, the understanding is imposed upon and in the conscience and silence. When vice is painted in all its black colors, we are apt to be alarmed at the commission of it. But when it is stripped of its deformity, we can become more reconciled to it and more ready to yield. Yeah, the exhortation of the sister towards his brother. Mhm. Look, and one thing more you want God's spectacles to see sin and know it when it comes, for it does not always show its colors. But when it is stripped of its deformity, we become more reconciled to it and more readily yield. Excuse me. Hi, sorry, I just came back. Dad just wanted to bid me good night. Well, good night to you too, Dad. Anyway, so well, going back, where were we? So again, Johnston, when it comes to sin, they will give soft names to the greatest abominations in order to prevent alarm. But when it is stripped of its um, now, when vice is painted in all its black colors, we're apt to be alarmed at the commission of it. But when it is stripped of its deformity, we become more reconciled to it and more readily yield, making sin look or sound okay. And the reply of the sister to her brother, and one thing more you want God's spectacles to see sin and not when it comes, for it does not always show its colors. See? The devil is deceptive. And I mentioned this before. We should also ask forgiveness from God of the sins of the things what we thought were not sin. They do not threaten or argue, but entice with flattery and fair speech. This is one of the modes to cover the deformities, its deformities, to cover to cover itself from its all black colors. One of which it is one of the it's one of the ways, one of the modes to pre to prevent alarm, awareness. But can that be a light matter which is treason against the Almighty, and which has subjected us to death? Perhaps we are more in danger from smaller than greater transgressions, because they steal upon us more imperceptibly and draw us insensibly into the commission of them. It is not is not this a good argument to be jealous of the very appearance of evil, and to love the garment spotted with iniquity? Next, by representing the gain and the pleasure which accompany it. Gain and pleasure are the two great charmers which have seduced mankind and led them captive at their will. What foul and black crimes hath the love of money been the means of perpetrating? To this corrupt source may be traced all the fraud and injustice, all the theft and robbery which have been committed. And what is this acquisition of wealth upon which men are so much set? As what Joseph Parker would call it, this is a self defeating policy. Suicides and murders, the same old douchebags trying to one up against each other. Getting into the lifestyle and suicide, getting into the lifestyle will also cause you to murder. Now in this case, in cultural context, this is talking about neighboring countries who try to neighboring tribes who try to one up against each other, pillaging, raiding, stealing. The Amalekites is a good example, a very good one. But today, it's different. People seek self-aggrandizement and validation. Isn't any substantial? Yeah, well, hang on. And what is this acquisition of wealth upon which men are so much set? Is it any substantial, permanent good? Will it preserve health, prolong life, or ward off death? The love of pleasure has ruined many, and in chance the simple, health has been impaired. Sorry. By traducing the principles of good men and turning their manner into ridicule. The gospel hath unfolded a glorious plan of salvation by which God, consistently with the purity of his nature and the perfection of his government, can be reconciled to the chief of sinners. It is nobly adapted to restore peace to the troubled mind, and to inspire the hope of immorality. No, sorry, immortality. I'm sorry, guys. The hope of immortality. Shall we be laughed out of it by any set of men, or for any gratification whatever? Uh-oh. What is this, free gracers? It seems that the guys in the commentary that I'm reading pretty much tells you that somehow free grace is kind of a shady, don't have to do anything kind of thing. Look at this. Shall we be laughed out of it by any set of men, or for any gratification whatever? Here's more. The gospel hath unfolded a glorious plan of salvation by which God, consistently with the purity of his nature and the perfection of his government, can be reconciled to the chief of sinners. It is nobly adapted to restore peace to the troubled mind, and to inspire the hope of immortality. Whoa! Titus 1, 2, 3. Titus chapter 1, verses 2 to 3. Also, and to make it to add a significant contrast, Titus chapter 1, verses 16. They profess to know God, but they deny him by their works. Cretians, the Amalekites, the Canaanites, any tribe with pure shifting sands of what they call ethics and morality, they're trying to one up against each other. Number 4. By leading the road and calling us to follow them, it must be allowed that example has a powerful influence upon mankind, and will often prevail when all other means prove ineffectual. Good nature may not allow him to separate from his companions. To do as others do hath long been a powerful principle of action, and hath carried men greater lengths than they are ever thought of before. I proceed to the second branch of the subject. I shall give an advice or two to the young. Before I go further with this one, it no longer makes sense to say, "Oh, we don't. Uh, it's not our spirit that is sinning. It's just our fleshly desires." Well, wrong. This pretty much tells me the story when Jesus was resisting the temptations of Satan. So it wasn't just a spiritual battle. It was also to make sure that in the flesh he would not be physically, tangibly, empirically demonstrating that his spirit was actually um, to demonstrate that the spirit was actually not with sin. Hang on. Sorry, just my polo. Hang on. I'm back. Sorry, that's what you get for being under the same roof with someone else. Anyway, so where were we? Yeah. So as I was saying, it wasn't just a battle against. It wasn't just a battle for the spirit. It was also a battle that whatever your spirit was being confronted with, you would not demonstrate it in the flesh. There's no way you can get around that. So ignore anything that any so ignore that, ignore when free gracers say, "Oh, that's not it, that's just your fleshly that's just your fleshly nature, not your spiritual nature. The flesh is sinning, not the spirit." Bull crap. Jesus demonstrated that it wasn't just the battle for the spirit or the battle for the flesh not to demonstrate sinfulness. Out of out of out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. There's no way you can get around that. So ignore that. Free gracers, Proverbs 1, verse 10. Now, by leading the road and calling us, oh yeah, we read it this one, sorry. Now, I proceed to the second branch of the subject. I shall give an advice or to the young. Cultivate any early acquaintance with God. Carefully avoid the company of the ungodly. Solomon says this too: seek God, who knows but your principles may be shaken and your morals corrupted before you are aware. Again, the reply from the sister to her brother. You may want to know or have the spectacles of God to know what sin is, even when it doesn't make itself obvious. Be earnest in prayer to God that He may never suffer you to be tempted beyond what you are able to bear. Heaven is your best resource, and from whence your most effectual aids do come. Yes, because in heaven, there's nothing imperfect that exists there. Number two, a few arguments which, by the blessing of God, will enable us to resist them. It is mean and dishonorable to be connected with bad men. True, there's no way you can get around that. I mean, nobody wants to be associated with dirtbags anymore, with con men, anymore with evil people or people with just hidden, just people who just want to literally see, all passionately, volitionally, and greatly just want to see the world burn. Number two, it is most prejudicial to your best and eternal interests. The health will be impaired, the soul lost. You see, sin just doesn't hit you spiritually. Again, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. Whatever is in your spirit, most definitely your flesh will also demonstrate that. This is the sin of debauchery too. Excessive drinking, excessive eating, excessive everything. Now, next, the infinite obligations you are under to your God and Redeemer. If you consent, you will lay a foundation for much anguish and remorse. Loose, loose and dissipated men may put on what appearances of gaiety and mirth they please, but I am apt to think it is more affected than a real, more feigned than true. Number five, the distress and grief in which you must which you must involve your parents and friends. These are the people who want the best for you. They may say some uncomfortable things, but it is to protect you. Hindering you from doing whatever you want? Technically, yes, but at what means? Right? Now, there's pretty much more to say here, but I want to leave this for another time because this is actually interesting and we'll have something to look forward to. Okay, so if anybody wants to come into the stream, you are welcome to click on the link. It is at the side chat. I'm going to stop sharing the screen now. So if you want to share your insights or what you learned uh, from the reading I had today, well, feel free to chime in and I'll let you up. So, what have we learned today? Yeah, don't give place to sin. Just don't give place to it. I mean, we've read enough to know that once we entertain it, we're already digging our own graves. And we may not disgrace ourselves in front of people, but regardless of where you are, you disgrace yourself in front of a mighty God. So, yeah. So, if anybody wants to contribute or share their thoughts, the link's in the description. It's right here. It's in the side chat. Maybe you wanna tell me what you ought to share with me or whatever. And please, guys, no trolls, no anything. I really want to hear your take on the subject. So if you want to come into the stream and tell me to contribute what's in your angle, then go ahead. By all means, enter the stream. Links in the description. I even highlighted that to show you that I posted a link. I can't make it any more obvious. Anybody want to chime in? Because I also got to do some other reading too. Probably read Dr. Kenny's book a little bit, also Michael Boyd's. Anyway. I'll give us like 2 minutes or 3. If anybody wants to come in. Could have pinged this. I'm not going to show it anymore. Just ping it up there. Yep. So if anybody wants to come into the stream and share or contribute about the subject at hand, then by all means, go ahead. Come over. And for those who just came in here, we're talking about Proverbs chapter 1, verse 10. And we've gone through some extensive commentary through it. I decided to save some from the biblical illustrators because at least we have something to look forward to. I mean, there's a lot to be said. I mean, we actually have from W.M. Taylor, A. Gibson, Southern Pulpit, W.G. Barrett, John Hunter. I mean, there's just a lot to say for verse 10. So if anybody wants to come into the stream, links in the side chat. Share if you want to share. If you want to share, contribute what you think of the subject. Go ahead. I'll be here. Or you could just, write down in the side chat your contributions, your chats, or you could just simply say hi. I'm gonna be unless if somebody is coming up here, I'm gonna shut this down in 2 minutes. So if you wanna come in here, give us your contribution in the subject matter, and by all means come in here. I'll give you 2 minutes. So unless if there are, I'm pulling up at night. Unless people are going to come in, I am going to turn off the stream in 2 minutes. And we're down at the final minute. So if anybody wants to chime in and share and contribute or share, by all means, link is in the description. Last call before the ending of the broadcast. "30 seconds. Say something now or forever hold your peace." A bit of grace. A bit of grace after this last minute. I'll grant 30 seconds more. 25 seconds. I mean, we can still look into the commentary of where we last left off. If you guys just came in here. Who was actually watching? I can't tell. Okay, I guess if there are none, then to those who have watched and made it this far, thank you for chiming in. Thank you for saying hello at least, and I hope you guys appreciate this Bible reading of mine. Replay should be available at some time. If you guys are in the Discord, then I'll just share the link, and feel free to share this if you found this insightful, and I'll see you in the next reading. God bless you all.